You want to get under the blanket? He did. Hi, I'm Phil. Welcome to Pretty Good Cooking. Today we're doing a culinary Ask Me Anything. We solicited questions for this some time ago as part of the John arc. And here I am on my couch, perhaps an angle you've never seen before, but I hope you feel cozy. Iggy's here as well, smashing my stomach, and Vinny's over there trying to pretend like he doesn't see what's going on here. Alright, so I have compiled lists of questions which I have not reviewed, and I will be answering on the fly for your viewing pleasure. Make yourself comfortable, Iggy. X asks, I recently moved into a new home and am working on acquiring kitchen equipment. Anything you'd recommend as a must-have? I kind of am fairly minimalist, I suppose, with kitchen equipment, which was not always the case, but I do think that there's, at least now, most people in their homes, they deal with having limited space. So I really try to think through the lens of like, does a tool justify taking up space? For me, what I really need are good knives, good cutting boards, really nice pans, particularly really good non-stick pans, a cast iron something or other, a good Dutch oven, and apart from that, really you just need maybe some tongs. But if you work on your knife skills, you can use a knife for almost anything, including things it's not intended for. So those are the things I'd recommend focusing on. Reuben Vrieken, and I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, asked a lot of questions. And so we will be kind of spreading those questions out throughout. Here's the first one. What new food do you really want to try? I couldn't give you an answer as to a new food because that implies like it didn't exist before. To answer that literally, as in a newer food, I don't think I've tried like the Impossible Burger, which is like, the plant analog to a burger that they say is good. But I hear it's very good, so I would like to try that. But in terms of things that I have not tried but would like to, I would like to try steak tartare. I think that would be pretty fun to try. I think that would be very challenging for me because the prospect of eating, like a pile of raw meat, I feel a little bit, I would really have to trust where it comes from, All right, next up, another question from Reuben. What's your biggest food pet peeve? I have a couple, I suppose. I'm not really that uptight of a person, so I wouldn't even really call them pet peeves. But probably the most obvious thing would be, I guess, people who are too fussy about food or who overcomplicate things for the sake of that. Because food is food, right? And if it doesn't taste good, I don't care how crazy or esoteric it is. When people take food too seriously, that is probably my biggest pet peeve. Lindsay V asks, what is your favorite condiment, homemade or otherwise? That's a very easy one for me to answer. The answer is hot sauce. Hot sauce on everything. Hot sauce is that good shit. Makes pretty much anything not worth eating, worth eating. Reuben asks, what's your guilty food pleasure? I have a lot of those, which should surprise nobody. One thing I really like, and I think I've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it again. I really like a bowl of cold spaghetti noodles with shredded cheese and hot sauce. And that's it. And that comes from childhood where my mom would cook, 2 pounds of pasta for a meal, and we would just have a literal bag of pasta in the fridge. And I didn't know how to cook anything, but that's where it comes from. And I still revisit that from time to time. Really like that. I eat a lot of ramen noodles too, but I don't really feel guilty about that. I just like those. Guitar Maniac 2121. What was the worst food that you have cooked on the show in terms of time needed to make it and overall result? Well, that's an easy answer. That dirty ass rice with the liver, worst thing I've ever made on the show. Inedible. We threw it in the trash. I don't even want to think about it. I'm a little salty that I had to think about it. Don't eat liver. Unless you grew up eating it, that's fine. Reuben asks, pizzas, pineapple or no pineapple? I like the pineapple on a pizza. I do. I don't feel like it's that controversial of an opinion. Tomatoes in the sauce of the pizza have a natural sweetness to them, and the pineapple complements that nicely. Tomato and pineapple go really nicely together. I love pineapple on pizza, particularly with ham or Canadian bacon or whatever. But I'm a big proponent of it. It's not like my favorite pizza, but I definitely enjoy it. Imaginary Freund? I don't know how to say your name, but the first question is favorite German beer, so that's probably how you pronounce your name. My favorite German beer, which I'm mostly sure is a German beer, is the Helles Lager. I know that's a very simple beer, but I feel like it captures the essence of pure German beer. I love Helles Lagers. Those are really, really good. I get down on all of them though. The second part of that question, most hated dish to cook. I would say generally anything that's bread, and I'm specifically thinking of like, one time Courtney convinced me for a family thing that we were gonna make park rolls or something like that. Park dinner rolls, which is like, yeah, we made them from scratch, and I had to like fold them 1,000 times, and I had to butter them 1,000 times, and it's just like all this work for bread. God bless the bakers, but I'm not one of them. I don't like making bread. Stephanie asks, what foods would you refuse to make and opt to order instead? Generally, baked goods would be in this category. Things that like take multiple days to cook, I would also say is in this category. So pies, empanadas, hand pies, that whole genre, pasties, that whole genre of things that people love to tell me to make and have the whole time we've done this show. I don't want to do any of that. Tora Alstead asks, what kinds of foods did your parents make that you still make today? Anything traditional in your family? That's a great question. I really like that one. We've featured many of my family recipes on the show. Recently we did Norm's Nola, so my grandpa's granola. And we do still make that today. Mexi-Mac is another one. That's a real throwback to the early days of PGC, which is doctored up mac and cheese with beans and salsa. My mom would make shrimp Alfredo when I was a kid, so that's another one. Her version was significantly different. We did eat a lot of pasta growing up. So spaghetti with meat sauce, mom's spaghetti. My grandmother used to make chili. Egg dish is another one. We did that one. That's a holiday feature. Just Shane asks, if you opened a restaurant, what would you like to serve? I would love to have I would probably serve pho. I mean, to be honest, that's probably what I would do. Probably a Vietnamese restaurant. I also really like the concept of a restaurant in which there's an improvised menu. So basically we serve whatever is cooked that day. But I also have kind of a burger flipper component, like almost a SpongeBob-esque aspect to my outlook on life. So, maybe burgers. I'll just flip burgers. And chicken wings. I like chicken wings. But actually, what is your favorite meal from a bunch of numbers? My favorite meal is pho, specifically beef pho. It's just my favorite food, hands down. Reuben asks, what's the worst smelling food that's still tasty? I would say fish sauce. Fish sauce smells like a fermented fish, which is very unpleasant, but it really works nicely in a number of dishes. And yeah, that's what I would say. Rachel M asks, will you be cooking cicadas when they arrive, assuming you live in an area that has them? They are supposed to arrive shortly, and I will not be cooking with them. Reuben asks, what's the easiest yet most delicious food to prepare? I would say that, to me, the easiest and most delicious thing to prepare would be a salad. And that's a really broad answer, but I'm defining salad as like an assembly of largely uncooked items. Very easy to prepare that, but you can make really, really delicious things just by mixing up chopped vegetables. Adam Cluckaberry asks, why did you make a 27 bean soup in 2017? What does that mean you will make 37 bean soup in 2027? We made a 27 bean soup in that year because it was like a bad idea that like just escalated out of control, where I was like, what if we just added every bean we could think of? 27 was just an arbitrary number of the amount of beans that we came up with. But as to will we make 37 bean soup in 2027, I doubt it. I would say there's probably a 3% chance. Wild Muffin asks, what's the best way to chop up an onion? I feel like that's probably a facetious question.
Just check out this video.
Yeah. Here's this video. But from a verbal diction standpoint, I would say chop the onion in half. Chop the top of the onion off. Slice it with the grain of the onion, like this, and then rotate it 90 degrees and cut it against those slices in order to create a minced onion. Good question. Colin Bunnell asks, what's your opinion of the fake meat situation? I really like the way you phrased that question as if, as if that was a common thing that everyone's like, yeah, we're in that fake meat situation. I do think that there are environmental benefits to trying to eat less conventional meat. I don't think that fake meat is necessarily attractive, I suppose, from like a culinary perspective. And I say this specifically in the context of I like things to taste good for what they are, but broadly my experience with analogs, where something is trying to replicate something else, I'm not like a huge fan of that most of the time, unless it is inherently good unto itself. And so I say that in the context of like a black bean burger can be very delicious, but I think of that more as a patty of black beans than a meat analog. And so if I want a black bean burger, then I want beans. I don't really want meat. I am optimistic that like science will continue to progress, and maybe like lab grown meat will get to a point where it's good to eat, and maybe that will prevent some suffering in the world in some way. But that's my like kind of broad opinion of it. I think that there are obviously some significant problems with how meat is raised today. And, anything we can do to improve that, I think, is a good thing. The flip side of that is that I don't think most meat analogs taste very good. Reuben asks, what's the best cheese? Good question. Should have more questions like that. What that best cheese is? I would say my favorite cheese is probably extra sharp cheddar or aged cheddar. I think that is my favorite cheese. Adam Cluckaberry asks, how do you really feel about Gordon Ramsay and Gordon Ramsay's eggs? I think that Gordon Ramsay is a caricature. I think that most people who say they like cooking because they like Gordon Ramsay are probably bad at cooking. And I don't say that because Gordon Ramsay's not a good cook. He clearly is a very good chef. Clearly has built, an empire. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you probably like Gordon Ramsay because you're an asshole. Because Gordon Ramsay channels the persona of an asshole in some of his endeavors. Not all of them. I mean, he's a sweetheart in other ones. But I think a lot of people who like Gordon Ramsay like him because he dramatically says there's like one right way of doing things, and he yells at people and is kind of an asshole. And people who like that kind of thing typically are not nice people. I hope that's a sufficient answer. His eggs can f*** off. I mean, you can make, like a medium cooked egg or a soft cooked egg, and it's nice. It has its context, but to say that that's the only way to cook a scrambled egg, or even the best way, is flat out wrong. There's a whole range of different ways to cook eggs, and his way of doing it is not inherently better than any other scrambled egg, and you can take that to the bank or credit union. A bunch of numbers ask, will you make daenerys? Sure. Yeah, sure. Why not? John G asks, at what point is a steak well done? The answer is when it is at 160 degrees Fahrenheit or above. Last question from Reuben. Hot peppers. How hot is still acceptable? That's another good question. Reuben, you did a nice job with these questions. I would say that for me personally, habanero peppers are probably near the upper range of being hot but still enjoyable. You can get a little bit spicier, so like in some applications, a ghost pepper can be, very spicy but not overbearing. But generally speaking, when you get past habanero, that's when, for me, I kind of get off the bus. Corey S., biggest cooking disaster. What do you think it is?
The chili oil explosion.
Yeah. The things that come immediately to mind are the chili oil incident. Obviously, that was very bad. I'm lucky to still have my eyes. I also think of much further back when we tried to make falafel and we didn't. We just made some weird husks. And I ended the episode on the floor, face down. But in recent memory, the dirty rice, that was just f***ing awful. Last question. John Gardner. What is the most overrated vegetable? That's really tough for me because I pretty much love all vegetables. I'm a He-Man vegetable lover, so no vegetable is overrated. They're all underrated, in my opinion. Perhaps the most overrated vegetable would be like lettuce. Lettuce is heavily featured. It's really not that. It's not like particularly good for you. A lot of lettuces, but I do like them. Maybe butternut squash. That might be an overrated one. I would, yeah, maybe like some squashes are overrated. All right, that's all the questions we got. I answered them. Hope you liked it. Okay, bye.